Hi, I'm Bob Jakl and my wife Elizabeth. Welcome to Mariposa. We've been here working on this O-scale railroad for 30 years, and we feel it's complete. We have 3 sons and a daughter. 3 sons have helped work on this layout, and we appreciate all their help. Our daughter has a son, so we're hoping the new generation comes up and enjoys it also. Let's go in the railroad room and we'll introduce you to our son Ed, who will take you on a tour of our layout. Thank you.
Hi, and welcome to our layout. I'm Ed Jakl. You've met Bob, who's my dad. I'm going to give you a little overview of our layout, a little history about the construction and everything, and then we'll run some trains and show you what we've got going in this room. My mom and dad were both from the Chicago area. My mom's from LaGrange, Illinois. My dad's from Hinsdale. They're both on the 3-track main line out of Chicago, going to Aurora where the commuters run, and they've freight trains and mainline passenger trains. So we've got that on the layout. We've got the 3-track main line. We run commuter trains. We run long passenger trains and long freight trains on that line. My dad's also a big Santa Fe fan. After moving away from Chicago, we've lived in several places about 4 or 5 years each time, and usually near the Santa Fe main line. That became his favorite railroad, so we have the Santa Fe main line going. For a while, we lived in Oklahoma. And during that time, I became interested in the Katy. That was the little hometown railroad there, I guess. And so I modeled the Katy, and we have a branch line that runs around the room, and that's represented by the Katy. The layout itself is really a family event. My dad's been a long-time model railroader, but he raised his own railroad club in his 3 sons. My sister is not too involved in trains. She's not a big fan of them. But she has a son who is. And so there's still hope for the next generation that we'll keep model railroading in the family for another generation. My mom actually worked for the Burlington for a while. So that's one of the reasons that's her favorite railroad. She enjoyed her time working for the Burlington in Chicago. And she used to take the commuter trains into Chicago on a daily basis to go to work. But later on, when she met my dad, she was working in a bank in LaGrange, Illinois. At that time, they were dating. My dad would show up, because it was near the end of her shift. They'd want to go out and do something. Well, my mom would get nervous because she saw my dad in the parking lot. Like, well, I'm not ready yet. I've still got to count on my money and take care of my car. Well, the reason he was early is they were right across the street from the Burlington main line. He was watching trains go by. So he was happy to be early. You know, he enjoyed that time. And then they enjoyed their date too, obviously. They got married. My older brother, Perry, he enjoys building freight cars. And so he's done a lot of that. There's over 100 freight cars on this layout that he's built. That's his passion. He currently lives in Georgia, so he's not involved with the layout on a day-to-day basis, but he comes here a couple times every year. My younger brother, Tom, is an artist. And he has painted a lot of scenery around the layout. Most of the motive power has been painted. He's excellent with an airbrush. And so he does the weathering, a lot of the painting of different locomotives, freight cars, and that sort of thing. My mom actually is involved in running the layout, but also she did a lot of the work in the construction of the layout. All our track is all hand laid. All the ties were individually cut on a table. So my mom dyed all of these ties with RIT dye and jigged them all in different platforms and laid them all out on the roadbed. She also did all the work in the dock area here. All the woodwork between the rails and all the woodwork on the dock was work my mom did. My sister, like I said, she's not too involved with trains, but she has fun, and she's an artist as well. She bought a couple things for the layout, and later on we'll show you some of the fun stuff that my sister bought. I myself am an electrical engineer by trade. My job on the layout was doing a lot of the electrical. I put together the main power supply, built all the throttles, which are transistor controlled throttles, and then a lot of the accessories. They all have their own power supplies, they all have their own voltages and current requirements, and so I helped design a lot of that stuff and lay it all out. A lot of fun accessories around the layout, and everything seems to have its own power supply, so the electrical's pretty complicated in here. Because we've built a layout representing areas where we all came from along the Chicago to Aurora line, we have several structures along that line that have meaning to our family. We have the bank where my mom worked when my mom and dad were dating. We have the hospital in Hinsdale, Illinois that I was born in. And we have our hometown house that my grandparents actually built. My parents also lived in, and I lived in when I was very young. There's also a place on the layout. There's a bridge over the rail yard, and my dad and his grandpa are standing along there watching trains go by. When I was growing up, we moved about every 4 to 5 years, mostly due to my dad's work. And so we never really had time or space for a very big layout. So we always had really small layouts, sometimes in a garage, sometimes in a half a garage, but we did build different layouts. During those times, we had a vision of how a really big layout would work out. And our dream was to have, multiple main lines, but also big switching yards and small operation. We knew that would take a lot of space. Fortunately, when my dad retired, they moved to Mariposa, California, and were able to find a lot of land. And so with this plot of land, we were able to construct a large building. Building's 34 by 80. And it was actually limited because there was 80 feet between two large trees. And we talked to a truss maker, and he said the largest truss we could make was 34 feet. So that limited the width, and the trees limited the length. We didn't want any posts or anything in the middle of the building, so we ended up with a building 34 by 80. Most of the construction was done from the family, but a few things were purchased. Like I mentioned, the roof trusses were made by a truss company that was local. They came out with their truss machine and built the trusses on site. The foundation cement itself, we didn't pour all the cement. There's a cement company in Mariposa that came over with trucks. We put all the footers in, they put all the cement in for the foundation. Most of the materials for the layout itself actually came from the Merced Mall. At the time, they were rebuilding the Merced Mall with new storefronts, new carpet, new lighting fixtures, and they were throwing out all their own material in a dumpster. So we went down there at night with their permission to unload the dumpsters, where we got the 2x6s that we use for the fascia. We got a bunch of redwood plywood that we use around the skirting of the layout. And we also got a lot of 2x4s. Our only work was to take all the nails out of it and cut it to size, but that's where a lot of the materials came for the layout, including the light fixtures that we have in here, all the fluorescent lighting. Our construction is typical home construction, using 2x4s. The benchwork has 16-inch on center 2x4 going up to make basically walls of the benchwork, and then we have plywood and homosote over that. The building itself is also typical house construction. The walls are made with drywall on the inside, 2x4 walls, and stucco on the outside. The ceiling joists are 2 feet center to center. The walls are 16 inches center to center. The ceiling height itself, we decided on 10 feet. And the 10 feet was so that even with our benchwork at tabletop high, we could have a tower in the middle of the room on top of the tracks where we could even stand up in that tower and look over the layout very comfortably. We developed layout plans over the years, but once the building was complete, we traced the track plan on the floor and realized what was actually possible within the space we had. We didn't want duck unders, so you actually enter the building below the benchwork and walk up 6 stairs into the middle of the layout. In our effort to make the layout visitor friendly, we have very wide aisles and even a sofa to relax in. Some of our benchwork is tabletop height, so you can sit in a comfortable chair and watch trains go by. All of our track is hand laid, and many of the ties were cut from sugar pine with the standard table saw. Rail and some turnout parts came from right away. Many railroad friends contributed to our layout. The Pleasanton, California Railroad Club came out for a hydrocal party. So in one day, much of the mountains were formed using 600 pounds of hydrocal over paper towels and wood framing. Our large downtown area consists primarily of buildings once residing on Laurel Joyner's famous Great Southern Railroad in San Antonio, Texas. 2 things we figured we could have done better in the construction. One, we should have pre-drilled several holes in the benchwork prior to covering the framing, and that would be to make it easier to run all the wiring later on. As it is now, if we want to run new wiring to an accessory, we have to crawl under the layout and drill holes, and of course the sawdust gets all over us and it's very uncomfortable. So had we done that ahead of time, that would have saved a lot of irritation later on. Also, we did our benchwork with 16-inch on center spacing, but that was overkill. And with 16-inch spacing, it's hard to crawl between our benchwork, and it's hard to put boxes for storage and everything between the 16 inches. So had we done that with 24 inches on center, that would have made everything a lot easier for storage and a lot easier to crawl on and work under the layout. Most of our electronics came from a Honeywell surplus store when we lived in Phoenix, Arizona. We run straight DC, not DCC. So we have one main power supply that's actually a 1100 watt transformer, and we have several transistor controlled throttles around the room. All our mainline and branch line tracks are controlled via a block system and operated from the main tower in the center of the room. We also have throttles and block control around the room in areas where there's switching or small industry. Our accessories are run by multiple power supplies located around the layout. All of our signals are functional to show the direction turnouts are positioned. In addition to electricity, we also ran gas and water to the building. So we installed a microwave, a small refrigerator, a gas furnace, and we have a small bathroom as well as a small workshop. This makes operating here really comfortable. Because we built a rather large building, we are able to run large O-scale trains. Therefore, on the main line, we run passenger trains as long as 16 cars and freight trains of 20 to 30 cars. The aero we model is primarily from the 50s to 70s, late steam and early diesel. However, through the years, we have creeped into earlier steam and even some more recent diesels. All of our freight trains do have cabooses, and our passenger trains are all pre-Amtrak. And our railroad cops do not tolerate graffiti. There is almost no freight car or locomotive on the layout that has not been modified. All of our locomotives and most of our freight cars have been built to specific prototypes. Plus, they have to be functional. We did not build equipment to be static displays, so for some locomotives that meant we needed to repower them, and all of our freight cars have Katy couplers, making the operation much easier. Our equipment consists of everything from high-end imported brass locomotives to scratch-built wooden cars and everything in between. We run Overland, Central Locomotive Works, Locomotive Workshop, Custom Brass, Key, Weaver, Atlas, U.S. Hobbies, just about everything you've ever heard of. I mentioned before that we have some specific structures that relate exactly to points in our life and our family. But almost every structure on this layout has some personal connection, from buildings that represent another model railroader or a family member or close personal friends. They all have some meaning to us. So we basically have 3 different railroad operations on this layout: the Burlington, the Santa Fe, and the Katy. The Burlington has a large hidden yard where we can store about 8 or 9 full-length trains, and it goes out around the outer portion of the building. This is the 3-track main line from Chicago to Aurora, where we go through LaGrange, we go around here through Highlands and then Hinsdale, and then after Hinsdale, we convert back to a single line, which goes over a large bridge and back around to the hidden yard on the Burlington. The Santa Fe is the next innermost section of track where we have a really large freight yard that holds about 150 freight cars. We have a large engine facility over here. The Santa Fe main line has mainline storage tracks here that goes around the next level, which is primarily with the reddish ballast that we have going around here. It goes through some mountains. On this side of the Santa Fe, we have a large Union Station with 8 tracks able to hold passenger trains that continue back around on this side back into the Santa Fe main line. The third is the innermost line, which is the Katy, and the Katy has a small freight yard here, and its track goes around to serve some small industries like the oil refinery. We have a dock area over here. We have an ore mine over here, and then some other little industries on this end. It proceeds past the Santa Fe yard and then goes back down on this side where we have a roundhouse and turntable and some older equipment in here with a coal mine and a lumber mill. Welcome to our control tower. From up here, we run all of the Burlington, the Santa Fe, and the Katy branch line trains. So as far as the branch line is concerned, we're the ones that move the trains from the Santa Fe yard over to the Katy yard. And the others are just mainline trains. We have separate systems for the branch line, for the Santa Fe, and back there for the Burlington. As you can see, because we have a block system, every turnout is controlled from up here, and every block is controlled up through here. We have 2 throttles for the Santa Fe, 2 throttles for the Katy, and we have 3 throttles to run the Burlington. As you can see with block control, we have a lot of wires. This is definitely not DCC.
Well, this is the Santa Fe panel, which is my favorite railroad. Passenger stations are in here, all controlled separately. And over here we have the fueling docks where most of the freight engines are parked when we're not in the yard or running through. The yard is not shown, and the yard is controlled from the floor.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. My favorite spot is right here, working the Burlington Railroad.
So as I mentioned, our Burlington represents the main line from Chicago to Aurora, the 3-track racetrack. On our layout, after it leaves downtown, the first station it stops at is LaGrange Road. Our LaGrange Road station represents a pretty accurate model of the prototype station. After we leave LaGrange Road, we go to the Stone Avenue station. And if you're familiar with LaGrange at all, you know that the LaGrange Road station and the Stone Avenue station are very close to each other, just a couple blocks. On our layout, that's true as well. And in our LaGrange, we actually have operating gates that go up and down as the trains go through. They're actually triggered by some infrared sensors, so whether you're a commuter train or a mainline freight or passenger train, the gates work just as well. Following Stone Avenue, as is the case on the Burlington, we go over the bridge of the Indiana Harbor Belt. Our Indiana Harbor Belt is a short switching line where we have a couple switchers just to go in and out, and we use it actually as a parking area for other little switch trains. After we go over the Indiana Harbor Belt, our 3-track main line goes, just as the Burlington, through Highland Station. And on our Highland Station, we have a model of the actual station, the very prototype model that my brother Perry made. So our 3-track main line, after it goes through the Highland Station, goes through the town of Hinsdale, and that is where our fictional Aurora is and our commuter trains terminate. Our main line continues on past that Aurora station, which doesn't exist on our layout, and goes over a single-track mainline bridge past a mural done by our good friend John Leiter. Our Santa Fe Railroad is anchored by this large freight yard. We can hold about 150 freight cars, and we originate trains out of here for the Santa Fe main line and for the branch line. Our Santa Fe engine house holds about 30 locomotives. Diesel-electric locomotives is what we run out of here. We have servicing facilities as well as an engine house. The main feature of our Santa Fe is that we can run really long freight trains and nice long passenger trains. For the freight trains, we have 4 mainline sidings that hold longer freight trains of about 30 cars. In our passenger station, which is our downtown Union Station, we hold about 10 passenger trains in there. Here we'll run a Santa Fe Manifest train being pulled by GP30s and GP35s. At the time, no one commercially made a GP30 scale, so my dad took some GP35s and modified them with the extra cowling on top to make them into GP30s. Our TOFC train is representative of the Santa Fe Super C, which ran from Chicago to Los Angeles. Pulling our train is an Overland SD40-2, a Central SD40-2, and a Central SD40. We have several truck trailers on our layout that are representative of the trucking companies my brothers worked for. On this train, we have Knight Transportation, ABF, and Carolina Freight. Being in California, we occasionally get a Southern Pacific freight train running on our layout. Here we have an SP cab forward pulling a block of reefer cars. The Union Station on our Santa Fe main line has 10 tracks available to hold full-length passenger trains. And being a Union Station, not only do we have Santa Fe trains, but we have Union Pacific and we have Katy as well. The Union Station is sort of the centerpiece of our downtown. But our downtown consists of these huge, beautiful buildings, mostly that came from Laurel Joyner's Great Southern Railroad in San Antonio, Texas. The first train we're going to pull out of Union Station is the Katy, Texas Special. Katy and the Frisco ran this joint train. My train is primarily made from a custom brass E unit and mostly Kasner and American Standard passenger cars. The Santa Fe El Capitan now is coming out of Union Station, while the city of Los Angeles is entering Union Station. The El Capitan consists of Golden Gate Depot passenger cars and U.S. Hobbies FP45s. The Union Pacific City of Los Angeles is Chemtron passenger cars and Locomotive Workshop E units. And now we have two Santa Fe trains. We have the Santa Fe Chief pulling out of Union Station. And at the same time, the Super Chief is pulling into it. The first part of the layout that we actually completed was the Katy yard and the roundhouse and turntable. Both of these sections came from a layout owned by our good friend Ron Schofield in Scottsdale, Arizona. The Katy branch line has 2 complete loops and 2 Ys, enabling bidirectional railroading and interchange between our 2 main freight yards, as well as several industrial switching areas. The coal mine was made by me as a school project in junior high. It's no coincidence I built it in 1/4-inch scale. During operating sessions, we are able to keep several people busy switching the yards, transferring trains from yard to yard, and delivering up and picking cars from various industries. We always say that our layout is simple enough that one person can run 5 trains, and it's complicated enough that 5 people can run 1 train. Our dock features a very large warehouse that accommodates several boxcars, as well as the Great Lakes cargo ship, the Elizabeth Jane, which is named after my mom. My dad scratch built the ship with just a few brass castings added to it. We also have operating sessions with some of the local model railroaders. For our operating sessions, we make up trains in the Santa Fe yard that are sent to the Katy yard. They are broken down in the Katy yard and made up into trains that head out to the dock and other industries. The Santa Fe yard also sends empty coal cars to the coal tipple and receives full cars back. Trains coming from the small industry and the dock go to the Katy yard, which breaks them down and then sends them back to the Santa Fe yard. For our operating sessions, we use the car card system. And we're going to make up a train now and show you how that works. Every car has a card, and we're making up a train that's going to go over to the Katy yard, so every card needs a waybill. This train is almost already put together, but we have 2 more cars that we need to add to it. We're now going to bring a couple locomotives out from the engine house to pull this train around the layout. We've got a GP20 and a GP35. The train has now cleared the switch. The yard master has given his okay, and we're going to pull out of the yard now and out onto the branch line. The train has left the yard and has gotten onto the branch line to the end of the yard limit. At this point, the branch line operator up in the tower is going to take control of this train. The train has traversed the length of the layout room, and it's coming out of the other end behind the downtown area. Soon it will be entering the Katy yard. So you might be wondering why the train stopped. The local train has traversed the branch line and is now ready to enter the Katy yard. The Katy yard now has to take over control, so the man in the tower has to turn that block over to the Katy yard and give control of that train to the Katy. Now the Katy yard will take control of it, and I'll pull that train into the Katy yard along this line, run the full length of the yard, bring the engines all the way down here to the end and cut them off. The engines then will run around the train, pick up the caboose, and a caboose hop will be headed back to the Santa Fe yard. We'll then select a switcher from the Katy that'll pick up this train and sort the cars out into the yard. We now stop the caboose hop at the yard limit, and the branch line operator will take control again. The train that came in now needs to be broken down into cars that need to go to the grain elevators and to the dock. We already have a Katy train in the yard that's ready to go to the dock, so we'll run that to the dock now. The Katy yard has sent over a train to the dock. The dock operator now has control of it and will bring the locomotive over to the train that needs to be returned to the Katy yard. The dock will now send out the switcher from the dock to pick up the train. Now that the dock switcher has brought the cars into the dock area, he's going to go about his business sorting the cars and switching them to the right siding. In the meantime, the Katy is going to bring its engine back and couple onto the train that needs to be returned to the Katy yard and bring it back to the Katy yard. You probably noticed a strange car on the end of that Katy train. Well, the Katy made an inspection car out of a boxcar, and so did we. My brother Perry scratch-built that car from a plastic boxcar, and it actually won first place at a O-scale convention. The real car now is in the Oklahoma City Railway Museum in Oklahoma City. The train that's running around on the Katy now is being pulled by a Union Pacific steam locomotive. That locomotive happens to be sitting in a park in Riverside, California. That park happens to be where my brother Tom was married. So that is personal to him, and he's the one that painted that locomotive. The Southern Pacific locomotive on the turntable is actually a model of a prototype Southern Pacific locomotive that's in the Arizona Railway Museum in Chandler, Arizona. My brother Tom's also a charter member of that museum. This is, after all, a toy train layout, so we like to have a lot of fun. How many other layouts do you know have a spaceship where the aliens are trying to steal a cow from a rancher? This is one of the contributions my sister gave to the layout. Other fun things we have on the layout for children of all ages to enjoy, besides the space alien, are oil wells. So you push a button and you can get the oil wells to pump some oil out of the ground. We have an ash burner at our lumber mill, which gives ourselves a good smoke. So we don't try to run that too long. In our downtown area, one of the buildings has an elevator. And the challenge there is to see if you can stop the elevator on the right floor before it goes too far or before it doesn't go far enough. We have a hobby shop. The hobby shop actually has a little story. We bought that in Oklahoma City at Ed's Hobby Shop. So even though it's a Lionel structure, we converted it to Ed's Hobby Shop. We also have a diner, which happens to be the phone for our train room, and it plays a little tune when you press the button. And finally, we have a cement dryer at our cement plant. The dryer rotates and it dries out the cement as it goes down the dryer. Two more things we have that may be fun for you to look for on the layout. We have Waldo. So you can try to find out where's Waldo. And we also have Santa Claus. And Santa Claus moves around a little bit, so you may have a hard time finding him.
Thank you for visiting our layout. We hope you enjoyed our layout, and thank you for watching.